So I was 13 years old the first time I ever saw a white buffalo image, right? It was in the 1977 movie, The White Buffalo, starring Charles Bronson and as Wild Bill Hickok and Will Sampson as Crazy Horse, whose characters are both haunted by the same frightening dream, or nightmare really, of a gigantic white buffalo powerful enough to shake the ground and to burst through mountains. It still holds up today, by the way. I think it's worth seeing if you haven't. But years later, while in my late 20s, I began having occasional dreams of a white buffalo. And in one particular dream, it appeared to me near a cabin on a lake at the foot of a beautiful snow-capped mountain. It was wearing a collar with license tags, and it led me to a nearby stream. And the dream left me with a very positive feeling, although I was initially troubled by the image of this sacred being wearing a collar. I mean, that's just what a white man would do with a buffalo, right? As if it were merely a pet or something that belonged to me. But my mentor back then, a Jungian psychotherapist, suggested that it could also be a symbol of belonging and of affection, that the white buffalo, a manifestation of the Great Spirit in some Native American traditions, holds meaning for me, and that I needed to pay attention to its invitation to follow it along the stream of life. Now, this interpretation resonated with me, and I began contemplating the dream's deeper meaning. That setting, a cabin on a lake beneath snow-capped mountains, has always been my idyllic place to live. Probably wouldn't want to live there because there wouldn't be any grocery stores, but nevertheless, that's where I think I want to live. That's my heaven, if you will. So to borrow from Native American mythology, I found myself outside Great Spirit's lodge at the foot of Thunder Mountain. Fortunately, I was not invited into the lodge, not yet anyway. Instead, Great Spirit, manifesting as white buffalo, takes me to the stream of life. Right? I'm not going to the happy hunting ground permanently, but to the stream of life, an invitation to walk beside her by following her ways throughout my life. Now, I realize that this sounds far more ethereal than is usual for me. Please don't get used to it. Some might come up to me afterwards and say, I'd like to hear more sermons like that. Ain't gonna happen. I've only got one or two, I'm sorry. But I really don't know any other way to talk about this, what was really a cherished experience for me. And before I say more about it, I want to tell you something about the Lakota legend of the white buffalo, so that you understand what it means to walk beside her along the stream of life. So if you want to show that first image, Todd, I'd appreciate it. The story goes that during a terrible famine, two desperate hunters noticed a walk-in, a sacred being, floating toward them from the distance. And by the time the walk-in was close enough to make out, it had become the most beautiful woman that they had ever seen. She had 2 red dots of face paint on her cheeks. She wore a bright white buckskin outfit embroidered with colorful designs, delicately drawn with a porcupine quill. Her long black hair hung loose except for a single strand tied back with buffalo fur. Overcome with lust, one of the young hunters made the mistake of becoming disrespectful and was immediately struck by lightning. Because the other hunter had treated her well and with respect, the walk-in told him to go back to the people of the great nation and tell them to prepare for her arrival by constructing a medicine lodge. 4 days later, the Lakota people saw the walk-in, who they named White Buffalo Calf Woman, approaching and carrying a bundle with her. And when she arrived, chief standing hollow horn, honored her and said, "Sister, we are glad you are here and happy to hear your instruction." Then she entered the medicine lodge that they had constructed, and she circled its interior like the sun. And after showing them how to make an altar out of the red earth, she opened her bundle and she removed the chanupa, the sacred pipe. She filled it with red tobacco and demonstrated the right way to smoke it by walking around the lodge 4 times like the great sun representing the sacred hoop, the circle without end. Its fire is the fire without end, passed from generation to generation, and its smoke is the living breath of great-grandfather mystery. White buffalo calf woman then showed the people the right way to pray by lifting the chanupa up toward grandfather sky and downward toward grandmother earth, and then in all 4 directions to complete the sacred hoop. With this holy pipe, she told them, you will walk like a living prayer, with your feet resting upon the earth and the pipe stem reaching into the sky. Your body forms a living bridge between the sacred beneath and the sacred above. Wonkin Tonkin, the great spirit, smiles upon us because now we are as one. Earth, sky, all living things, the 2-legged, the 4-legged, the winged ones, the trees, the grasses. Together with the people, they are all related, one family. The pipe holds them all together. And after teaching them more about the sacred pipe and its meaning, she turned to the women of the tribe and she said, you are from the Mother Earth. What you do is just as great as what the warriors do. She then turned to the children of the tribe and said, you are the most important and precious ones of all because you are the coming generation. Someday it will be your responsibility to hold the sacred pipe and to pray with it. She then turned once more to the chief and to all the people and reminded them to take care of the great sacred pipe and to remember to use it in all of their ceremonies. She said, I am the 4 ages of creation and will return to you every generation. Every generation I will come back to you. You will see me again. She then departed toward the direction that she had come, her beautiful shape silhouetted in the orange sun. And as she became more distant, the people saw her take the shape of a buffalo, turning brown, then red, then yellow, and finally she became a white buffalo calf, all the colors of all the people of the world, just before disappearing. And for this reason, it is said that she has rainbow eyes, because she sees all people of all colors as one. After she vanished, the plains were immediately filled with an enormous buffalo herd, some of which sacrificed themselves so that people could have everything they need to survive: meat for food, skins for clothes and shelter, and bones for tools. And this is why the people of the great nation, the Lakota, believe a white buffalo calf is the most sacred being that anyone can encounter. Alas, in real life, if that's what ours is, the last white buffalo known to have been born had been in 1933. Given that the national herd had become almost extinct by then, reduced to just about 500. It was believed that the anomalous gene resulting in the rare birth of a white buffalo must have been wiped out. But when I was in my 30s, several years after my dream, I learned that in August of 1994, a white calf had been born on the hobby farm of Dave and Valerie Hyder in Janesville, Wisconsin, just north of Chicago, Illinois. The Lakota people named her Miracle. And I wanted to go visit Miracle the moment I learned about her, because the impact of my dream had stayed with me all those years. But it would be 6 more years before I finally had the opportunity to do so. My young son, Julian, young at the time, and my friend Jim Carter accompanied me on the journey. I called in advance to ask if it would be all right if we spent the night on the farm, if we camped on the farm. And a kindly old man answered the phone and gave us permission, adding, "If anyone gives you a problem, just tell them that Grandpa said it would be okay." And upon our arrival, we entered a small gift shop that had been set up on the property and asked where to pitch our tent. Valerie Hyder politely informed us that they don't allow strangers to overnight on the property. She wasn't happy when I told her that we'd driven all this way and Grandpa told us it would be okay. Shaking her head, she said, "Wait here while I go talk to my husband." And a few minutes later, she returned and instructed us to go out and speak with Dave Hyder. We found him sitting atop his noisy tractor, a tall, thick, rugged, gruff hobby farmer who worked as a truck driver by day. He gave us a suspicious once-over while determining whether or not to make good on Grandpa's promise. Being a staunch Republican, it turns out, he was especially leery of my friend who made the mistake of introducing himself as Jimmy Carter. Upon explaining he's no relation to the Democratic president and that he prefers going by Jim, in a bit more ice-breaking conversation, Dave Hyder agreed to let us stay. He even invited us to sleep in a teepee that the Native American dignitaries had permanently set up on the site for their visits. And of course, the idea of spending the night inside a real teepee thrilled my son. Todd, would you show our next image, please? So before setting up camp, I spoke a bit more with Dave Hyder, who told me some of Miracle's story about the day that she'd been born and how on a whim he called the local paper in case they wanted to come and take a picture of a rare white buffalo calf, and how surprised and overwhelmed he and Valerie were to soon have tens of thousands of Native Americans, among others, coming to their small farm from all over the world. He also admitted that first all they could see were dollar signs, but once they realized that what Miracle represented, they felt morally obligated to share her free of charge with everyone, even though they had offers to buy her from all over the place, including from Ted Nugent and Ted Turner. Dave said the Indian nation of South Dakota offered to trade their entire buffalo herd just for Miracle. But he kept her. They kept her on their humble farm, tucked on the outskirts of one of America's small working class cities, riding his tractor, driving his truck because it was the right thing to do. Even if he didn't like Jimmy Carter. He told me about the many times he'd seen her come down from the hill, stand at the wire fence. It's one of those fences with posts and then like 3 wires that go across it, so you could almost walk through it, almost invisible. It was electric, I think, but I don't think they had any electricity running through it. And he said he inevitably, she'd come down and stand in front of one person out of a crowd of 100. He says, inevitably, that person would come to me afterward and tell me that they're dying of cancer or something like that, and they wanted to come and visit Miracle before their death. And astounded by all of this, I said, well, I suppose she's the closest thing to a pope or to a Dalai Lama that we have here in the United States. He's been here, Dave replied. I said, who? I asked who. Him, that guy you just said. The Dalai Lama? I asked in disbelief. He told me that he'd once noticed, in his words, a couple of little monks running around the place, which wasn't terribly unusual because they had visitors from all over the world. But he remembered this particular occasion because one of the monks eventually came to him and said, "My master wishes to speak with you." That was an unusual turn of phrase, to say the least, but Dave Hyder followed the man to see his master, who told him, "Miracle and I are on the same path this lifetime, and it has been very important for me to spend time with her. I want to thank you for all you and your family are doing for her and for allowing us to come here." The next day, the servant returned and handed Dave a silk scarf, which is on display in their gift shop, explaining that it was a gift from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who apologized for not being able to reveal his true identity, but that he needed to keep his presence concealed because he had risked everything by leaving his bodyguards behind in order to spend sacred time alone with Miracle. Just before sunset, Julian and Jim and I sat on a log just outside the wire fence separating us from Miracle's pasture. And the fence was covered with hundreds of ribbons and dream catchers that past visitors had tied upon it. It might surprise you to know that Miracle was no longer white, unless they are albino. White buffaloes are born pure white instead of brown, as other buffaloes are. But within the first year, they turn from white to yellow to red to brown. All the colors of all the people of the world. Just like white buffalo calf woman does before disappearing. And by the time I met her, Miracle looked like any other buffalo, and she was accompanied by a small herd consisting of herself, her own young calf, another female with a slightly older calf, and their bull. And while setting up camp, I had observed her acting like any normal bison might, mother bison might, chasing the bigger calf away from hers when they were playing too rough. But as we were sitting, they all came by briefly to sort of check us out. First, the huge bull, then the other female, then the two calves, and finally Miracle. Upon doing so, however, she stopped, and she stood still before us, within reach, allowing her calf to frolic freely with the other in the distance. It was as if she understood our presence and decided to personify the goddess that we had come to visit. She wasn't tamed. Bisons are not even those raised on farms. And she let us know immediately we would not be able to make physical contact, that it was improper. It reminded me of that ancient belief that touching the sacred is profane, or that coming in contact with the totem is taboo. So instead, as is my custom, when I demonstrate reference for something I consider sacred, I prostrated myself 3 times. My son and Jim followed my example, and Miracle dropped her head low, right in front of me, enough for me to feel her breath blowing against my face. And I pulled some sweet grass that was beyond her reach and placed it on the ground in front of her, which she ate as an offering. She also remained with us, standing in that same spot throughout the entire sunset, never departing or moving or turning her attention toward her calf. She didn't leave us until sometime after dark, after we left. The next morning, she came and stood before us again, not leaving until it was time for us to go. Miracle's life was full of what Carl Jung would have called synchronicities, referring to those uncanny acausal connections between things or events, or what we might simply call lots of weird coincidences. According to the Lakota story, for example, white buffalo calf woman's return is supposed to signal the beginning of world peace. That's what she represents. Now, Miracle was born just across the street from a lake called Geneva, the name of the Swiss city where the United Nations office are headquartered. And the name of the road that she was born on is Avalon, same as the mythological island where a young boy retrieves Excalibur from the stone to become the legendary King Arthur. And a few years after my trip to Janesville, I was having lunch with Houston Smith in Indianapolis. Houston Smith was one of the world's leading experts on world religions, if you don't recognize his name, and the subject of Bill Moyer's 1996 5-part miniseries, The Wisdom of Faith with Houston Smith. Houston, who died at age 97 in 1916, not only studied world religions, but he practiced all of them. And during our lunch, I told him about Miracle, whom he'd never heard of because it was just so close, just a few hours away. His holiness was there, he exclaimed with delight and disbelief. Wait till I tell Kendra, that's his wife, his spouse. This is the reason I came here, he said, even though he'd come to be the keynote speaker at a conference for Unitarian ministers. His thrill upon learning her story pleased me to no end. For me to be able to share a profound religious belief with somebody of his caliber and to have him be moved by it. Another sad synchronicity came September 19, 2004, when Miracle unexpectedly died. The same week, George W. Bush came to Janesville to address the blue-collar workers there while stumping for his re-election. It was odd, given that she'd been well cared for, hadn't been ill, and was just 10 years old, only a third of her normal lifespan. I couldn't help but wonder if the death of this symbol of peace, this peaceful being, wasn't some kind of cosmic response to the presence of a man who had begun 2 unholy wars, responsible for far more innocent civilian deaths than have occurred in Gaza during the past 2 years. As uncanny as her death was, exactly 9 months later, the gestation period for buffaloes like humans, another white buffalo was born. If you'll show the next image, Todd. More astonishing, the new calf was born only a few minutes from our home in Kentucky, not far from the state capital, on the border of a small town named Baghdad. Same as the name, of course, of the capital city in Iraq, where one of Bush's unholy wars was happening, although spelled without the H. Just as Miracle was born in Geneva, a place of world unity, on a street called Avalon, symbolizing her high status, it was as if she'd been symbolically reborn in a war zone, where her presence and message of peace and unity was most needed. Call it synchronicity, coincidence, mysterious, or just plain weird, the new calf's birth seemed a continuation of Miracle's own story and her peaceful purpose in the world. And I went to our whole family went to the new buffalo's naming ceremony, led by a local Native American tribe who named the still snow-white calf Conte Beute, which means medicine heart in the Lakota language, a name that represents their hope that she might heal the world. Could Medicine Heart have been White Buffalo Calf Woman's rebirth for a new generation? Todd, would you show the next image, please? For my daughter's generation, when she was still a child, she's 29 now. I can't explain the meaning of all of this and would rather just, as our song says, let the mystery be. What I will say is that my encounter with Miracle and her story has been among the most profound experiences in my life. It was an experience of awe and wonder that filled me with hope and gratitude and appreciation for the many mysteries of life that we are better off accepting than explaining. What I do understand is what it means to walk beside her along the course of our lives and to walk in harmony with all that is. But rather than merely explaining it, sometime after my encounter with her, I was inspired to write a song about what it means to see the world through her rainbow eyes. Until recently, being that I don't write music, I could only read it as a poem. But now, thanks to the magic of artificial intelligence, my Harry Potter-like powers have come to the surface, and you are among the very first to hear them as the inspiring song they were always meant to be.
I went searching for a vision with Jimmy Carter and my boy. We met a goddess in Wisconsin, north of Chicago, Illinois. She came walking off the mountain through the mists of Avalon, and though we could never hold her, she touched my friend and touched my son. She held my heart within her beauty, pulled this strong man to his knees. Jim and my boy fell down beside me as her breath became the breeze. She came to us white as snow on the first day of her birth, then turned brown and red and yellow like the people of the earth. She showed us how to live, she taught us how to give, to walk in harmony with all that is. She came to us with a mission, saw the world with rainbow eyes, pray in every direction, bless the earth and bless the skies, and see your own reflection in the face of everyone. Take what you need each day to live, learn to love and to forgive, walk in peace, wonder and beauty, revere all creatures great and small, offer thanks for every blessing and your heart to one and all. She came to us white as snow on the first day of her birth, then turned brown and red and yellow like the people of the earth. She showed us how to live, she taught us how to give, to be in harmony with all that is. She fell down one September, days before war reached her town. Now our hearts must still remember the great miracle we found. So we'll try to walk in beauty, and we'll try to live in peace, to fulfill our sacred duty, help awaken those who sleep, till white buffalo calf woman returns to walk the earth again. We'll give our thanks, care for the land, and treat all people as friends. She came to us white as snow, a sign of sacred birth, and blossomed into every shade, the colors of the earth. She taught us how to live, she taught us how to give, to live in harmony with all that is. She promised each generation she'd return to the promised land, teaching all the nations how to gather hand in hand. Who knew that I would live to see a new miracle reborn? 9 moons since the day she fell in a home broken and war-torn. Her tears of love, her healing heart, can mend the wounds of pain, give this violent world a brand new start, to live anew again. to us white as snow, a sign of sacred birth, then turned brown and red